Hey, you found ears. Everyday Artists, Real Songs. I'm your host, Aviva Gold. Today on the show, we have a novel of a song for you, Big Sky Country by Camilla Ammirati. Let's listen to the song performed by Uprooted and meet back here for a chat with Camilla. Camilla, I love this song. Like I said in the intro, it feels like a novel to me. Every time I hear it, I hear something that I didn't hear ever before in it. I just love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. So, I've heard you perform this song live a few times, so I know it's about something that actually happened.
hmm
So, can you tell us that story?
Sure. So, this is actually one of the few songs I've written that very literally describes a series of things that happened the way that they happened. There's like a few very small detail changes. This was inspired by a time that I took the train cross country, I think from Boston to Seattle, because I had gone to college in Minnesota and I would often take the train back and forth. I did not like to fly and I love trains. So I would take the train back and forth. And on the train between Boston or New York and Chicago or Minneapolis, I would often meet people who had been on the train or who were continuing on the train all the way to the West Coast. And on the way back, I would often, when I got on the train, meet people who had been coming from the West Coast, either just further than where we were right now or all the way across. And I would just hear from people about how beautiful the rest of the train ride was and how someday I should really make it all the way across. So I had always wanted to. I took the train all the way out to Seattle to get to take that whole ride. So along the way, I know that it was a time when I was feeling a little bit, at loose ends because I had graduated from college. I had gone on this amazing trip traveling the year after around the UK and Ireland. And then I'd moved to Boston. And like September 11th happened about a week after I moved to Boston. I was not alone in the city, but it was my first time living in a city, sort of living in an apartment as a quote unquote grown up. And my roommates were not people I knew well. I felt very kind of out of sorts in a lot of ways. And I was sort of working random jobs and trying to figure out if I was going to go to grad school and had started playing music with a group of friends there that one of whom I had a very big ill-advised crush on, who I played music with a lot. So we had a complicated friendship, and we were singing a lot of songs together and thinking about how to play music with other people and whatnot. But the upshot is I was in a sort of drifty place. Like I didn't know quite how to think about where I was or what I was going to do next. So I think when I went on a train ride, I think train rides are also drifty places. You spend a lot of time just looking out the window and kind of watching everything go by, or writing in a journal, or thinking you're going to do something productive and not, or whatever it is. But you're on a train for days in a row. Yeah, it was just a very in between kind of place and time already. And then once I got on the train, you meet a bunch of other people who are also in interesting in between kinds of places themselves in one way or another. So on this train ride, a couple things happened that really stuck with me. One was that I did have breakfast one day with a guy. I think the name is even right. I'm not 100% sure I remember that right. I do remember that his birthday was 1 year different in the song so that it would rhyme. But I feel like he'd be okay with that based on our conversation. I did meet a woman. She said that she had to get back west, that she was moving there. There was something really difficult going on. And I remember she specifically said that she had shipped her whole life UPS to the West Coast, and that she was like, I guess that makes this train my home. Like she said that to me, like while we were talking, that it was like, this is my home for right now, for these next few days. And I remember her saying that and seeming, you could feel it, that there was something big happening.
Yeah, that's a really special line in the song.
I would
Uh,
say thank you, but I didn't make it up.
yeah, but you felt it and you heard it and then you shared it. Which kind of leads me to my next question. Like this whole idea of temporary community where people are sort of thrown together for like a limited amount of time and it makes things sort of special or more poignant, or I don't know, that whole idea. It's such a bizarre and intense concept to play such a giant role in a song. And I was wondering if, that was part of the plan from the get-go.
No, I never thought about it in quite that way. But I think it's true that it's there. Like I think that's part of why that kind of train ride seems magical to me, is because of that exact thing. And I feel like every time I've been on a train, I haven't necessarily had people say intensely poetic things to me every time, but I feel like you always get the feeling that that's what you're on the train with, that's That's what's going on.
So was there really an avalanche?
There was an avalanche. So they announced that there had been an avalanche, and they did say, like, 6,000 tons of snow came down, like, that's what happens, and we cannot go through there. So, and they said there was gonna be a bus that was gonna pick us up, and it was gonna take a detour, and we soon found out that it was, like, an 8 or 9-hour detour, and the bus came and picked us up, and what they said was that the train was gonna go basically just turn around and go back because you couldn't get through, and then the train from Seattle was gonna come and drop people off and pick people up on the other side in Whitefish. So they're like, "Don't worry, you will get there, but you have to take this bus." So we all got on the bus, and it was like an 8 or 9-hour trip, and, and it was, like, exactly. I feel silly talking about the song because it's just literally what I'm saying in the song, but I remember just, like, it's a little less charming leaning against a bus window than a train window.
Yeah, so that's another thing that creates that feeling in the song, that like remoteness, those little towns, stars, constellation.
Because nobody would drive that particular route for almost any reason, but we just got to see, like, all these little towns, and I remember being really struck that they all had these signs as you were coming into them that would have the name of the town and, like, a little town slogan of some kind. So the ones in the song are what I saw, or, examples of that.
And eventually you did make it to the other side.
The train did come, and we got on it, and we got all the way there, and I met with my friends, and that was it. But it had just been, it had been quite a trip, and all along the way I had just been thinking a lot about, my ill-advised crush and what was I going to do with my life and etc. So that's how it all came together.
I'm so glad you brought this back to where you were in life at that time. Because, I mean, ultimately, I think of this song as a heartache song and a song about moving on. This whole idea of halfway to where I'm bound. Did you mean it as a double entendre when you wrote it? Like halfway to where I'm bound, like where I'm going, and where I'm bound, where I'm stuck?
So no, I didn't. But you're right. It's so funny because I later wrote a song called Northern Bound, which I did think about in exactly that way.
So why is this song called Big Sky Country?
I think because just the phrase, like, I hadn't heard that before. So I feel like that just hearing that it was called Big Sky Country, it just really the phrase really stuck with me, and then I think that feeling, like, because it was in Montana that we ended up having that really extended experience, it's just like, it's wide open, there's no other side, like, you could maybe never see the other side.
And when did you decide to write the song?
It would have been probably it's possible, I don't remember if I had little bits of it occurring to me, like, I'm sure I do a lot of writing in my journal on train rides, or I used to, I don't get to ride on the train much anymore, sadly, but, it's very possible that I wrote down a bunch of things at the time that would become part of the song, because I bet, like, the town names and the town slogans and that kinda thing are the sort of thing, like, when I write in my journal when I'm traveling, I'll just it's sort of like painting a picture, like, just trying to note. It's just a free association, like, stream of consciousness of details. Um, so I would bet some of it I wrote down in that sense then. In terms of the melody of it, I would guess it was within, like, months to a year after I got back.
So this song is pretty like singer-songwritery, but I think of you primarily as an old-time musician. So can you talk a little bit about that evolution there or how that all fits together?
I had been focused on Celtic music and, like, Scottish Gaelic singing and, um, just different subsets of Celtic music.
You got to spend some time in that part of the world, right?
It was an incredible opportunity, an incredible trip, just, like, magical in so many ways, and also about 3/4 of the way through it, I just got really tired of, like, everything being damp all the time and, like, Celtic music. I got really tired of Celtic music, and I was one of the, like, millions of people that saw "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" and was like, "Oh, right, American music." And I just like my parents were folkies in a lot of ways, like, they had played a lot of that music on records and stuff growing up, but I had never paid that much attention to it. I'd always been into the Celtic stuff, and then when I came back, I got really interested in American musical traditions, and I think being able to see how the Celtic music traditions that I had been studying, like, hearing that in Appalachian music, that, like, you'd see these lines and songs, be like, "Oh, that's actually a child ballad, and it was a Irish folk song for, you know, a couple hundred years, and now little fragments of it are appearing in these songs that are understood as American folk songs that have that's one of the streams of influence. And um, so I had like gotten really into bluegrass in particular, and I lived in a place where it was like a hotbed of bluegrass. I lived in Inman Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts. There's a place that we've probably talked about, the Cantab, which was like one of the like bluegrass meccas at the time. You know, it was like there was a weekly bluegrass night. So, and that was like a 15-minute walk from my apartment. So we were going to that every week. Um, and a few friends and I started playing instruments and having jams at our house. Um, my one of my roommates her boyfriend had lent her his banjo, and then they broke up. So we decided to be a bluegrass band, like an all-girl bluegrass band called My Ex-Boyfriend's Banjo. So we did that. And then we started inviting people over that we were meeting at the bluegrass jams and shows every week at the Cantab. So there started to be this jam group called Whiskey Friday that was meeting at our house every Friday for a long time. And then a band sort of formed out of that called Whiskey Friday. And then another band formed out of that called Tastes Like Gravy String Band, because we got interested in playing jug band and string band music. And then that group got interested in playing like Western swing and hot jazz and, Django Reinhardt kind of stuff. Not that I could play Django Reinhardt kind of stuff, but the people I was playing with could. And I could write songs that they could play on their guitars, and I could struggle along on my guitar and sing. So it's just this like sort of explosion for me of musical experience. Um, so that was that whole stretch of years. It was like from right after I got back in 2001 from traveling, um, through 2005 when I left. It was pretty immersed in that. Like I was doing other stuff work-wise, but that was just like a big part of my life and our lives with my roommates and friends. Um, so it was definitely somewhere in there. And it like, because we were doing bluegrass and jug band music and all these different kinds of traditional music, the thing that was like had currency, the thing that people responded to was writing in those idioms. So like when I wrote Black Eyed Baby and I brought it to the Taste Like Gravy String Band and I played it for them the first time, and one of my friends said like, "When'd you write that one? 1927?" It was like, and that was a winner, because it was like, it sounded like it could have been from the tradition that we were playing. And that was what really caught people's attention. So something like Big Sky Country, which was much more reflective, much more like they would say like that's a singer-songwriter song, not a traditional song, and or even like a neo-traditional song or whatever. So that was like, I probably played it for people here and there, but they were sort of like, "Oh, that's nice. Like, did you just sing your journal entry?"
So like the traditional music was more social, and then the singer-songwriter stuff sort of got less play.
I do love the song, and it feels like a song that's really important to me. And I feel like that feeling that I had a lot, like with the group in Boston, although they're a little less so maybe because that sort of like the singer-songwriter scene there was very strong and there was a lot of overlapping. When I moved to Charlottesville, like that was really different, and people like actively like poo-pooed the sort of like singer-songwriter vibe. It just didn't catch people's attention the same way. They didn't have the same kind of respect for it, I think, because they were doing a particular thing and it wasn't that thing. But then when I moved here, it seems much more open to just different genres. And like, what are you playing? That's great. Let's play that. And then when I met the women in Uprooted and we started playing together, one of the like countless amazing things about that is that they were so excited about different kinds of music than what I had felt able to play in Charlottesville. So like the things that I've been playing in Charlottesville, like there's some of that stuff that I miss having that kind of community around. But at the same time, like this song, I do love it. And I think there's something special about it. And it feels like there's a place for it here in a way that there wasn't before. And that feels like a really special thing.
So I think of banjo as your primary instrument. Did you write this song on a banjo?
I wrote it on guitar, and I grew up playing like piano a lot from when I was a kid. And when I got really involved in the interest in Celtic music, I started playing harp. So those are my first instruments. And I played like recorder and penny whistle and whatnot.
So do you ever write on banjo or keyboards?
I do write on banjo. And like sometimes they're very different kinds of songs and sometimes not. Cause like if it's like a swingy song, then it doesn't really matter. But then I'll write some that are more like old timey songs. And then those will be generally on banjo.
So when you write, is it generally tune first, lyrics first, concept first? Is there a general way that goes for you?
It can go any of those ways. What has happened with the songs that I like the most is that like a phrase has popped into my head with melody. So when that happens and like a little tag sort of comes into my mind, or a line, um and then I'll kind of like sing it over and over in my head, probably whether I mean to or not, and then like add on a little more and add on a little more. So when that happens, that a melodic line comes together with words from the first time it comes into my mind, it generally flows from there pretty well. And then it's like, usually I feel like often I'll like write 2 verses, and then 4 months later I'll write the 3rd verse or 4th verse. And sometimes it sort of happens all at once. But then other times I might have just a melody, or have like a phrase that doesn't have a melody with it. And when that happens, it tends to just like be there for a really long time. And like maybe I can end up making something of it or not. But usually if they don't come together from the beginning, I have a really hard time making it into something. That's something I'm really curious about. I'm going to ask my question for the other singer-songwriters is like, how do people feel about singing solo versus singing with other people? Because I feel like I've always written songs because I couldn't help it at times when I felt sort of like overflowing with things. So there's like a period when I wrote a ton of music, and lately I don't write songs very often. But sometimes it sort of like happens. Um, but generally I feel most inspired when I'm both like overflowing with feelings about something, and also playing with other people who inspire me musically, and not generally compelled to play for other people when it's me by myself.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question because the process is so different when it's a collaboration. Yeah, I will for sure be asking people about that. Thanks. And thank you so much for spending this time with me, Camilla. It has been a total blast. You can catch Camilla Ammirati with Uprooted and the Don't Tell Darlings on all the usual streaming platforms. This has been Ears. Thanks for listening.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.